Hello students, this is week 6 already. So we start with this chapter and I'll just go over the chapter 13 from your book. The basic idea of going over the PowerPoint is that it contains material for your written assignment, which is due on Sunday. So this is the chapter which is on environment and environment hazards and problem. It gives a definition here, and then we have this chapter outline for the entire for your entire chapter. So let's go on to the real crux. We're talking about environment and biohazards and bioinvasion in globalization and what's going on and happening, and the ozone depletion which has happened. And of course your textbook and your chapters contain a lot of details about it. It talks about bioinvasion, which is the intentional or accidental introduction of organisms in regions where they are not native. So that's bioinvasion, when you're not at a place and you go to an alien place and then something infects you. There's something called environmental migrants, people who flee from their home region due to environmental problems. And you've seen recently in Puerto Rico, this has happened, and even Virgin Islands, where people had to displace, and fortunately only those people who had visas and who had passports could do it. Those who did not are still stuck, so that's about environmental migrants. The WTO, we all aware of, the NAFTA agreement, which was signed in 1990, and the free trade area, which actually brought about a lot of free trade and movements of just not goods but people in and out of the country, which brought with it a lot of environmental degradation. Because the market expand, and due to profit, most of the factories and industries were set up outside US. And of course, when it's set up outside in the second world and third world nations, it influences the environment, because there's a lot of pollution comes with that, and those countries have to pay for that. So the basic idea behind doing this recording is that you need to apply structural functionalist approach and conflict approach to the environmental problems, and I'll just go through it so that it's easier for you to do the assignment, which is due for your for Sunday. So the structural functional focus on how changes in one aspect of social system affect other aspect of society. So if there is something going on in terms of environment, or one aspect means if the factory has is producing goods, but it has a lot of pollution coming up, so it's going to affect the environment and what the people around breathe. So it affects soil, it affects water, because the dumping ground is in the water. Most of the rivers are dumped with all the biodegradable items, so it's kind of non-degradable, so it pollutes the water. And sunlight as well, because it all goes back to the ozone depletion. So an ecosystem is actually disturbed. And other structural functionalist approach would be that the dysfunction or the negative consequences of social actions that are unintended and not widely recognized. And the unintended actions are, again, coming back to the same thing. For profits, we set up industries, we set up factories, but the negative consequences is all the waste material coming out of those factories actually goes and is being dumped outside the factory. So it's neighboring area. The people are affected somehow because of the gas emission later on, and it pollutes the environment. So what the workers are breathing is also affected. So here is an example which talks about expanding production of biofuels made from corn, reduces reliance on fossil fuels, but also has an unintended consequence of raising food prices. Right, so it's kind of go hand in hand. So structural functional approach, which is positive at one hand, but there is a negative consequence attached to that on the other. So that is, you need to pick up some examples, something of that sort, from the videos, from the chapter from the book, from the 2 videos I've posted for you, and also an article to review. And there's an activity website where you got a lot of information on environment pollution. So all that you'll have to extract a few examples to show how structural functionalist perspectives apply to the environment hazard. Next perspective which you need to apply is the conflict perspective. The conflict perspective talks about how it's all about the power game. You know, those people who have power, who have money, actually build up the industry and make sure that their own environment is safe, and they push the factories to other countries, the third world countries, so that all the pollution goes out there, and it is at the expense of the polluting the air and the environment in those third world countries that the first world countries, people sitting in the first world countries, actually profit. So this is all about profit and loss at the you know, at the expense of those poor countries and poor workers. So these are the examples which they are there in the PowerPoint, which is embedded in your in the you know activities as assessment. And then we're talking about environmental injustice, which is also kind of tendency for marginalizing population and communities to disproportionately experience adversity due to environmental problems. This is totally applies to the conflict perspective. Again, it's about power, it's about money, it's about how you blame and marginalize people. So people in power can do that. It applies totally to the conflict perspective. So this is another example which you can choose. The third is a symbolic interactionist perspective, which is talking about real nuances like meanings and symbols and labels attached to environmental problems and effects. And if you look at to China, you know, the people go in early morning to the work, and they have their mask on. So that's a symbolic example of how the environment is polluted. There's something called greenwashing, and it involves manipulation of public perception of maximizing profits. And many corporations make genuine and legitimate efforts to improve their operations, packaging, and overall sense of corporate responsibility towards the environment. So this is another symbolic interactionist perspective where greenwashing is, and there's a symbol kind of an imagery, corporate image, which talks about eco-friendly items and goods to be sold. So that's again symbolic. There's something called pink washing, which talks about color pink and pink ribbons, which again is helping fighting breast cancer. Again, very symbolic, and it's kind of abstains and urges people and company to stay away from chemicals which cause cancer, right? And you know about the asbestos. So that's kind of, you know, it's all about pink washing. So these are symbolic meaning which are attached for environmental hazards and other hazards, environmental problems. So symbolic theory, symbolic interactionist perspective. And here we have how environmental problems, different problems, and because of what it is caused via deforesting, desertification, all are examples which actually cause or are the environmental problems, hazards, and this should be not done. Air pollution, of course, this is chronic in China, and it all comes from coal and processing minerals from mining and solid waste disposal. You've seen, you can read what the disposable waste are which cause this pollution. Indoor air pollution talks about, so many diseases attached to that, which is which we have it in US as well, but third world countries have most. So depletion in ozone layer is all in all because of this, and now what has happened is because of the depletion, because of the hole, the sorry, so the ultraviolet rays are reaching the earth. There is no barriers, there's no layers to protect us, and the skin cancer actually has come up because of that. So how one thing leads to the other and it becomes so chronic. Something called acid rain. If you've not studied in your high school chemistry, this is there. Sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxide mix and precipitate to form acid rain, and this is all due to pollution, because there's pollution goes up and up in the air and forms a kind of a layer, and when the rain comes it all dissolves and comes down, so it's called acid rain as well, if you've heard of. So the fish die, and and it has happened in the lake in New York. So that's an example of acid rain. Global warming, and you've seen it yourself, in Connecticut itself, how change, the temperature is changing like anything. When there used to be cold and there used to be snow, now the snow is kind of not there, when it's supposed to be, and when it's supposed to be warm, it's not warm. So you can see it yourself firsthand, and you can imagine what's happening all over the world. So this is what it is, and of course sea animals and sea fishes and all, it's kind of getting difficult, it's changing. There's land pollution, there's nuclear waste, solid waste, light pollution, and of course people marching against and advocating responding to the environment problems. So the activism is going on as well. It's called eco-terrorism, which is threatening use of illegal forces by groups of individuals in order to protect environment or animal rights. So that's the concept of eco-terrorism. And so green energy and greenhouse, which is kind of a solution which has come up with. These are strategies for action, solutions, green energy and energy efficient cars, hydrogen fuel cell power cars. These are all to combat these problems. Solar and wind energy, biofuels, you can read about it in your chapter. So these are what needs to be done, strategies for actions. We need to do these. And now let's go into your chapter and see what else you have. So what you need to do is you'll have to go over. So you have the PowerPoint which I went through here, so you can always check into that, and of course pause the video and understand the concept. Then read this chapter, the chapter in your book, pages 403 to 438, and there are 2 videos for you. And then you have your article to review, and then this is an interactive kind of website sorry where you get all the information about environment problems and pollution. And then after doing all that, you're going ahead and doing your activities, a research paper and a discussion post. Thank you.